It's time to run 10 junk miles together.
10 junk miles.
10 junk miles. Junk miles.
Welcome to episode 3 of 10 Junk Miles. This is going to be the episode where we're going to turn the volume down a little bit because we've been getting a lot of feedback about the fact that it's a little too loud in your ears.
Some volume down, some volume up. I think
we'll
getting
call
close.
it mixed volume / carbohydrate edition. We've got some great stuff, but we're here today with Katerina Claiborne.
Hello.
Corey Fang.
Hey, what's up?
Aaron German.
I'm in Boulder.
Oh, Aaron's remote from Boulder, Colorado. He was in Iowa earlier this week too. And I'm Scott Coomer, and let's just talk for a little bit about what we've been up since the last episode. And let's start with you, Aaron, seeing as though you've been traveling all over the country.
I've been in Boulder for a couple weeks.
What are you doing in Boulder?
Training for the Boston Marathon and hanging out with my aunt who bought a house here. It is a mecca out here.
Yeah.
Of running roads and trails, and it's everything.
Have you seen the other star runners out there running?
I haven't seen no. To answer, no. I don't know what time they run.
Just from our point of view, when I think of Boulder, I think that I would pull into Boulder, and then there would be all these like superstars, athletes. Just like you go to the coffee shop, and like Scott Jurek's there, and Ryan Hall. Everyone's just like hanging out. It's not like that.
Well, the first day I was here, I ran up. I'm pulling it up now. It's a trail. What's it called?
It'd be more interesting if you already knew that.
Yeah,
it's called like
nice
Salina Canyon or something. Sunrise Canyon. That's the road, but I ran up the trail next to it. Nice. Anyway, I did like 6 miles, and I did see a guy that I swear it was that guy who won the Western States in that video a couple years ago that you showed me. The guy that eats like chili out of a bowl.
That was Jeff Rose.
Jeff Rose, one of my personal heroes.
The Alaskan guy. Corey loves
Does he live here?
I don't know.
He lives in Alaska.
Oh.
I mean, he might be there.
Not that guy.
He might be training there. Who?
Not Anton,
not the Alaskan
the
guy.
hairy guy?
Not the Alaskan guy?
Like the super long hair. I mean, obviously they're all really thin,
yeah.
but he like eats chili out of a bowl or out of a Frisbee.
I think it's Jeff Rose. I don't know that he's known for eating chili out of a Frisbee.
Anton, maybe the guy with the long hair? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah.
Do you look like Jesus?
Yeah, Jesus, that guy.
Okay, yeah. That could be. He could be in Boulder. Did you try and keep up with him?
Anyway, I got about a quarter of the way up this trail, and I had to walk the rest of the way. And my aunt claims that she sees people run up it all the time. I don't think anybody can run up that damn thing.
How did that make you feel, Aaron?
It was it was. I ran like 6 miles, and I did 2,500 feet of elevation.
Wow.
Have you acclimated to the altitude?
No.
So you're sucking wind?
Yeah, well, like the second day I did this road that's called Mongolia Road. That's not right.
That's more of your good show prep.
Yeah, I mean, why bother? We'll just wait while you Google that.
I think there's like one person living in Boulder that listens to this podcast, and you're like, "What the fuck, man? You don't know the name of the road yet?"
I've never had the opportunity to have the internet while we do the podcast.
Yeah, well, next episode, I want names of roads and names of trails so that the listeners can know.
We need pre-approved maps.
You're sucking wind up steep trails, and Anton might be there, but you haven't seen anyone else.
Well, this road was like at 8,800 feet, and it's supposed to be where apparently one of the roommates of my cousins here like lived with Keb or Jeb or Meb, and he like trained them.
You're the marathon guy in the crowd too. That's what's embarrassing.
Wait. I have a question for you, Aaron. Have you started your downhill training? I know that's what you said always kills you at Boston. Have you been doing some of that?
Yesterday I did a 14-mile run, and it was 2,900 feet elevation, and it was straight up and straight down. And then I did another one today, just like 5 miles. And my legs are beat up.
Nice.
They're just torn up.
Kat, what have you been up to?
Yeah.
Well, we went out to Arkansas, and we ran the Silamo 3-day stage race. First day, 50K. Second day, 50 mile. Third day, 20K.
It was a hard 50K.
It was. The first day was really hard. It got you really nervous about what was to come. But I finished, and I felt like I really pushed myself, and was really happy with the results.
How did it feel getting running 3 days in a row?
Oh my gosh, that's what was so crazy. It almost felt harder than when you just do 100 miles just straight through, because my goodness, you wake up the next morning, you can barely walk, and you got to go run 50 miles. It was cool, though, because I just thought, oh my gosh, that's impossible. How am I going to make it through 50 miles in any sort of a reasonable time? But your legs just kind of warm up, and I don't know, after a few miles, I was okay.
Were you happy with your performance?
I was really happy. I ran most of the race with my friend Amanda, and
Amanda Runyon.
Yeah, Amanda Runyon, and we pushed each other. And after the race, each day we'd go and soak in the cold river to kind of get the inflammation down in our legs. It seemed like it helped. Just an awesome atmosphere, really laid back. Lots of just kick-ass runners there who had, we're running with someone down the trail and talking about the races we've done. And I've done, I don't know, like 5 ultras. And, these women are like, oh, this is my, 83rd race of over 50 miles. And this is my,
there were some badass women in this. It was like Susan Donnelly and Tina Johnson. A lot of people that are just like, they've done 150s, 200s. I mean, crazy.
So it was really cool. It was just a great atmosphere, and I enjoyed the experience.
It was kind of like down home, old school, ultra atmosphere. There was like, they cooked for us after every race, and there was like a bluegrass band. There was only like 50, 60 people in it. It was really wild. And I didn't finish the 50. I finished the first day and the last day, and in the middle, I decided to, the whole weekend, what I was going to do was just go.
What's the first day and the last day?
50K, 50 mile, 20K.
Okay.
And my goal going into it was to try to run at that all day easy, like 100-mile pace, because I have the 200 milers coming up. And so I stuck to that the first day and had a, slow time. Me and Art were the last 2 people to finish. And then the second day, I was running with our friend Art Sundry, and we were having a great time, and we spent the whole day together. It was like one of those runs you'll always remember. And when we got to mile 32 or so, the guys in the aid station started telling us what they were going to, helping us with our stuff. And then the guy looks at me and goes, what are we doing? You're past the cutoff. You can't run anymore. and we were surprised. It was, and it wasn't like, oh my God, this is terrible. And it was just kind of like, oh, that sucks. So I asked the guy, where's the start finish from here? And he said, well, it's down that trail another 5 miles. I was like, well, let's go to another 5 miles, because we came out here to run. So we ended up getting like 37 in, and just a little slightly less beat up than everybody else. But I'm with Kat. I mean, I woke up on that day 3 and I was broken, just broken. My ankle was screwed up. I could hardly walk. I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? And then
I remember I was running in front of you, and you go, this was like moments after the gun went off, and I hear Scott say, are you limping? Like, yes, I'm limping.
It was crazy. We were coming down this big hill, and she was hopping.
Galloping.
She was hopping, and I was limping. But we ended up getting it done, and we had pretty good times that day relative to the rest of the field, too.
I mean, I think we were pushing ourselves. It was good.
We learned a lot of lessons. Corey, what have you been up to?
Spring break last week, so 40 miles or so on the beach barefoot. It's a nice time.
On the shells.
On the shells. One day on the shells. It was a post-storm day, and I was like, we've been having this conversation with our friends in a little Facebook chat.
Where were you for spring break?
West coast of Florida.
Wait, you don't normally run barefoot.
No, I mean, I like.
He used to be a Vibrams guy.
No, I still wear those shoes sometimes. I'm done with that whole thing.
Oh.
There was a day post rain though, and the shells were. I thought it'd be a good idea because we've been talking about like how do you get rid of calluses, and we've been trying some different strategies.
Run on
like,
shells.
run on some shells. It'll kind of naturally wear my feet down, but that's not at all what happened. I just got soaked and like spiked by a shell here. It was no good.
So how many miles did you get in over the vacation?
I did 4 9+ mile runs. So.
Oh,
that's not bad for
that's a lot of running.
Yeah.
Are you officially in training for the Colorado 200?
I'm officially in training. I'm full effect.
Now, do you have a plan? Do you have a chart? Do you have, or is it just trying?
Does your wife get angry when you're up?
What I'm doing? No, my wife enjoys when I'm away. no, I don't know. It all just works out when you're on spring break.
So you don't get any shit
There's
on
plenty of time to
vacation.
run for a couple of hours.
She doesn't mind if you go take off.
I've always found vacation, the ladies I'm with are very unhappy that I'm out running. They think I should be with them, exploring whatever we're there for.
We were just kind of on the beach, and like there's nowhere to go and nothing to do except be on the beach. So
see, my wife must be cool because the first thing we do when we get to vacation, she always looks at me and she's like, "You're gonna go
We're
running
gonna go
now,
run."
aren't you?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Of course, I'm in a new place. I've never been here before. I'm gonna get on my clothes and run."
Well, this Silamo race, I almost didn't go because of some personal issues. And when I came home and told my kids that I'd made the decision, I'm not going to go run this race, they started bawling and crying and begging, no, you have to go run, you have to go run. And so I guess my kids wanted me gone, just like the spouses.
Or your kids are just big fans.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
They want you to go
Big
run.
fans.
Yeah.
What does your husband do with your kids when you're away? Like they must get like to eat ice cream or something all day, huh?
Well, when we when we went to pick her up, Legos everywhere. Like the whole house is covered like a Lego blew up there, and then and Alex has no pants on. He's just running around without pants on.
Is that the husband?
That's very
Or-
similar to how
Scott's the husband. That's the son. All right. So on this episode, we have a lot of really awesome interviews. We have in the room with us Michele Hartwig. Say hi, Michele.
Hello.
Michele is someone that we could interview for about.
Probably a whole show.
We could do
Maybe
two
a few
shows on
shows.
her. She does it all. She's a commissioner. She's a runner. She started a running group. She's a race director. But as I said,
She sells underwear.
She does. She brought us trucker hats.
Maybe not sells.
And Aaron's gonna love this because he's not here in Coomer Studio to experience it. But we got brand new trucker hats. We got
those are awesome.
Blister shield. I got a Scott buff. There's some underwear that has evidently a protective shield for his special purpose.
There's a little sort of demoing.
What size are those?
I already snagged them.
Size cord.
They look like they fit you better.
If you want the swag, you got to be here.
Yes. They're called sacks.
I haven't done a
With two X's.
podcast before, so I didn't know if that was appropriate gift.
It's totally appropriate. No,
We're starting a new tradition at the 10 Junk Miles. Of
If you're gonna be on the
bringing us
show.
stuff.
we need gifts.
I got in gingy socks.
She got socks. I mean, everybody got something.
That's SAXX.
Yeah.
They seem like good
And,
underwear.
and,
Sax
and,
underwear.
and she was a little nervous, and I don't know why, because it took us 3 hours to get ready to do the podcast.
We're professionals.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, let's get back to Michele.
Hey, let's talk about the guest. Michele, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? How did you get into running?
Well, I got into running. I'm from Genoa, Illinois, a small little town over by.
Where is that?
It's over by NIU University, just right next to there, about 3 miles away.
What's the biggest town near it?
DeKalb.
Okay, so out by DeKalb.
And then I grew up in a restaurant and met my husband.
In a restaurant?
No, not at a restaurant, at a baseball card show.
Was this your parents' restaurant or something?
Yeah, it was my parents' restaurant. I always planned on running that restaurant. And I went to school for business. I sold baseball cards out of there. I made T-shirts. I did catering, and loved cooking for everybody in the town. It was a real small town. Everybody knew each
What
other.
kind of food?
We made homemade soups and like hamburgers and sandwiches. So kind of fast food, but a little bit of a diner type.
Okay, and then how did you get into running?
I was turning 40, and I thought that I had to do something special because I was doing 40. I didn't like to run at all, but for some reason, I decided to sign up for Chicago Marathon, and I regretted it the second I signed up.
This is the second person that we've had on the show.
It's a
They
common
had
theme.
no running history and signed up for the Chicago Marathon.
So I printed out a training plan, and I suffered through it. I started it in January, and I hated every single mile I ran. And I got to the Chicago Marathon. I had done every single mile that was on the training plan. So
What year was this? Just
it was 8 years ago.
Okay.
So whatever that was. But so I got there, and so I was actually well trained. I just didn't know it. But that was like my first day to, I guess, sort of relax once I got started. And it was actually that year that it was so hot and everybody was passing out, and I didn't know that was not normal. I was like, man, these guys didn't train, or these guys must not have trained, or what? There's people passed out, there's sirens going off, and it was, there was no water any place, so we just went into the store and bought water.
Did you finish?
I did finish. Well, I crossed the finish line, but it was 4 hours, and I knew that I hadn't finished in 4 hours. So they had redirected me. So I ran a shorter course. So I really wanted to do a marathon, so I ended up signing up for Indianapolis Marathon, which was 2 weeks after that, and I went and ran that entire marathon.
So were you part of the people that were running down the road and then they put up the big barricade and they kind of routed you straight?
Yeah,
east?
but I had headphones on. I was listening to my music. I had we were all running together. We didn't even know we weren't in the race anymore. There was a huge group of us, and we all passed. And I'm like, okay, I did not just run in 4 hours. I was training at 12, 14-minute miles. I'm pretty sure the math doesn't work out.
That race, Scotty got to the finish line before me too, and I was super depressed.
I got rerouted. That was the first time my wife came and watched me run a marathon, and I remember running and hearing the rumor start. There was a rumor. They're gonna cut it off. They're gonna cut it short. And I was investing in the rumor, and it was almost to the point where if they wouldn't have brought up that barricade, I was gonna die because I was just like, "This is awesome." Like I'm getting out of it. It's not my fault. I'm just a little slow, but whatever. But yeah, that I was in that race, and Aaron was in that race. He finished the real course, right?
Yeah. But I was like, it was like a really terrible time, and I was like, oh, this race sucked, and then Scotty beat me.
Yeah,
because you were because I remember seeing you at the finish line.
I got to the finish line, but I gave you my medal though.
Yeah.
So
they bust you over, right?
No. I had to walk from where they turned. Like Michelle said, they all of a sudden there's a barricade, and then we went due east to the finish line, and we, I guess if you had
I didn't know. I didn't know it was a barricade. I'm telling you, there was 50 people running with me. We were just all running, and I was thinking there was too many cars around and stuff, but we're just like hauling down the road. And
so now, how do you get into ultra running from there?
Well, honestly, it was after I did Indianapolis Marathon, and I don't even know how I knew about it, but I crossed the finish line. I really enjoyed running it. I felt good, and here I had hated running for a year. I crossed the finish line. I looked at my husband. I go, I could run 5 more miles, and then it would be an ultra. And so really quickly, I decided to, switch to ultras. And then we have Veterans Acres in our town. And I kind of had heard people talk in the background about a really hard 5-mile race they had out there. And I found some people that knew the trails back there and went and started running trails.
What was the name of that race?
It was the Northwest Trail Run, and they still have it going on now.
Okay.
It's a 5 and 10 mile race.
And so when you went and did this trail race, did that just totally convert you? Do you run on the roads anymore, or are you strictly trails now?
No, I actually like both. I am very much a trail runner. That's definitely my favorite. But when I'm training hard, I like doing speed work. And I prefer to do speed work on the road because your heart rate stays elevated. And if you're doing speed work on a trail on the downhills, your heart rate's going to drop. No matter what, you can be running as fast as you can, your heart rate's going to drop. So I like to do a real even, super hard paced, speed workout when I'm training hard.
So wow, you sound like you're really tuned in on that. I don't even do speed work. I hate speed work.
When I was running my best, I did speed work twice a week, and I ran 7 days a week.
Oh my
Averaged about 76 miles. Well, I absolutely averaged 76 miles over a 2-year period.
So Michelle had better training habits than all of us ever.
That's
70,
amazing.
80 miles is like a peak week in a year for me.
What years was it where you ran that many miles for 2 years straight?
I think 2010 and 2011 and kind of going into 2012.
And what were your key races during those years?
I always like 100-mile races. And different races I've done my best at. Winona Lake 50, I thought I did really well at. And
what's that race?
They canceled it. It's in Indiana, and it was like a looped course on some bike trails. But it was kind of the first time that I had trained properly, and I ran by heart rate. Before I just kind of ran everything fast, but then I hired Carrie Setzler as a running coach, and she told me she was going to slow me down to speed me up. And so I started running by heart rate.
Did it work?
And it absolutely worked because I went to that race. I was very well trained, but I wasn't tapered for the race at all. And I took off, and I'm like, oh, my heart rate monitor is not working because there's no way it's 170. I'm not. I don't even feel tired. And I'm like, well, my heart rate monitor has worked for every single run. I'm just going to listen to it and go down to 138, which was my ideal heart rate. And so I slowed down to 138, and it was right. and I was just able to consistently run, and I ended up lapping. I won the race, and I ended up lapping the second place girl.
Now, how did you get involved with mud?
My girlfriend Holly and we were some of the only people that we knew that ran trails, and so when we went out to Veterans Acres, talking about the scary stuff, but when we went out to Veterans Acres, we were kind of the only people out there running, and it made us nervous. So we talked to Karen too, because Karen Shear was doing, she was doing more triathlons and Ironman at the time, and we decided to start the Mud Running Club. And
what did the MUD stand for?
McHenry County Ultra Running Dudes and Dudettes. And
it was originally just dudettes at this point.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was. We might have had one. I think we might have had one. So we had dudes and dudettes. But we just chose the days. And our very first run out there, we were so proud. We had like 3 people, and we're a running club. And Rick Neinstead that does the cowbell at the race. Right. He saw us. He goes, "You guys look like a train." We're like, "We're a club. Get in behind us." And he's like, "Okay." And so then we told him the name of our club, and we already had it on the blog. And so he went and looked it up. And for 2 years, he thought we had been a club forever. He didn't know that was our very first run ever, and he thought we were a long-standing club, and we thought that was really fun. But there was many times where we would show up for our Thursday night run, and there would be nobody there. It would just be us, but we just kept posting it, and eventually people came.
And how many
You've
members
gained some momentum now.
Yeah, definitely. It's over 500, but and I look at the members, and everybody's been involved at some time, because I don't want people on there that aren't, that might be trying, who knows who they are. So everybody's been involved at some time, or they're runners.
And we're going to talk about your race directing in a separate segment, but one thing that I like to ask everybody that comes on the show is, who's someone that that you're friends with, or that you could make available to us, that you think would make a great guest on this show?
Oh, Karen Shear.
Okay. And then the other question I like to ask everybody with is, anybody in the whole world that you would love to hear on a 10-minute interview on this show, whether or not you know them or not, who would you like to hear from?
Oh, I don't know. You put me on the spot here. Somebody that I think that you guys would like to hear from is Steve Buchtel. He's that's getting a little bit into the race, but he's the director of trails for Illinois, and he's obviously really big into trails, and he's very interesting to listen to.
Let's transition. We'll just go right into the next mile.
Wait, hang on. I'm curious. How did you said when you finished the Chicago Marathon that you were thinking, oh, if I just did 5 more miles, it would be an ultra. How did you even know that was a thing?
I don't really know. I must have read it in one of my magazines. I'm sure because I read Trail Runner magazine, because I already had my eye a little bit on going out to Veterans Acres.
Nice.
All right.
Well, in the next mile, what we want to talk about is that you alluded to it, the Hennepin 100, and that's a new 100-mile race in Illinois, and you're the race director.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the Hennepin 100.
Do you want me to tell about how it started?
Sure.
What the cause is?
The story, what the course is like, anything.
Okay. Well, it started because I went to the Illinois Association of Park Districts conference downtown Chicago.
Because you're also a commissioner.
Yeah.
And that's of McHenry County?
Of Crystal Lake.
Crystal Lake. Okay.
And I went to, and they had different speakers, and I went to a speaker that was making trails count, and it was Steve Buchtel. And he was talking about all the plans for trails throughout Illinois that there's, should be money for. And, there's money set aside for, but it just takes 20 years sometimes for these trails to be finished. And, and he just had a lot of really great ideas. And I was inspired when I left the conference. So I picked up his card, I went home. And so on Monday, I called him up, and he answered the phone. I said, so on another side note is I always liked doing fast hundreds. I always wanted to, PR. I wanted to run the entire time. I liked something that I liked, being able to run a constant pace the whole time. So I kind of wanted to put on, I had this little back of my head thing. I wanted to put on a fast 100-mile race that was all trail. And so I called Steve and I said, thinking outside the box like you were talking about at the meeting, how about we use an Illinois trail to put on a 100-mile race? And he liked that idea. And we got talking, and we became really good friends. And the Hennepin Canal Trail is, very close. It's only like 2 hours from here. He was telling me about it. I had never even heard of it before.
This is like 2 hours west of Chicago.
Well, it's 2 hours from Crystal Lake, so I'm not exactly sure how far it is.
In the western
Yeah, it's west. And and here it has all this historic value to the state of Illinois, and I hadn't even heard of it. I hadn't run on it. So I went, and it's a canal. It's 103 miles long. It was made to connect. It was thought about in the 1830s, and it was made to connect the Mississippi River and the Illinois River. And so they started building it in the 1830s. It didn't get finished till 1907. And it was, engineering wise, it was way beyond its times. It was really, the Panama Canal actually.
way behind its time. I'm thinking it took 70 years to make the damn canal.
way ahead of its time for the thing, and or for the time period. But except for the fact that they were very slow at getting it done. So the Panama Canal borrowed ideas from the Hennepin Canal to build the Panama Canal. But by the time the Hennepin Canal was built, the barges were bigger, and so it didn't really have a very successful run.
Oh.
And it ran for, about 10 years.
So it took 70 years to build it.
No, it didn't take 70 years to build it, but they started thinking about it in like the 1830s, and then it wasn't finished until 1907. That was when
7 years. Yeah.
But they were just thought about it, so they weren't actually building it. It was just working at it.
So the trail runs right along the canal?
Yeah, so mules and horses would pull the barges, so there was always a tow path alongside there. So so that's flat.
So is it like the IPP?
I did a race like
prairie
that.
Path? Is it peat gravel?
It's all different things that have happened, since then. Some of it's if there's asphalt, it's extremely old asphalt that just is like broken up rocks, and some of it's washed out because the trail is a little bit in disrepair because people haven't been paying attention to it, which is one reason why we're coming there. But as ultra runners, so what if it's a little bit washed out in one part? It might kind of break up the run a little bit, but it's really pretty because it runs along the canal. We were just out there this weekend, and Scott Laudick got a picture of a barred owl, and we had bald eagles flying over our heads, so a lot of really cool wildlife. The trees have grown up on the side. It's dirt, rocks. Some of it's asphalt. When it goes through towns, it might be new asphalt, but it's a point-to-point race that starts in Sterling, which is the feeder canal, that comes down to a T, and then you head east, and you do a turnaround, and then you finish up where the canal ends. And it actually ends into the Rock River, but then the Rock River goes into the Mississippi River. So that was
it's on the
Cool.
Iowa-Illinois border?
Yeah, it ends over by the Quad Cities. It actually ends in a town called Kelowna.
What's the date?
On September 12th.
And is it 103 miles or is it 100 miles?
It's 100 miles. That was important to me because I was always a PR chaser, and I can remember my very first 100-mile race was Javelina, and I was scared to death going out there, and I found out it was 103 miles the week before I went out there.
How am I gonna get my PR?
I'm like, what?
Did you get your PR?
So, no. That one was. I just wanted to finish.
What is your PR?
Well, it's over 24 hours. I can't remember actually what it is. It's like 24 something. At Pumpkin Holler 100.
Where's that?
It's where is it? It's right at the Four Corners over. I can't remember the name of the state it's actually in. No, they still have it in Oklahoma.
But this is
But
really
it's actually in part of
interesting.
Ozark area, and that was hilly. I thought they were advertising it as a flat and fast race, but it wasn't. It had 15,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. They told everybody ahead of time that they were kind of wrong. That they had drove the route. It was park roads, and when they were driving it, they were thinking that it was flat. And then they went out there and ran it, and they were like, this isn't very flat at all. It was pretty much nonstop up and down hills. But I was really in really good shape and well-trained, but I always have stomach problems. So I was actually running at a sub 22-hour pace very consistently up to mile 80. And then I got really sick and I took a nap, and then I got up and I was just barely moving. My husband thought that he was going to have to come drive out on the course. He was scared. They had me all covered up. I drank some chicken noodle soup, and then I started doing 9-minute miles for 10 miles.
I'm calling bullshit on the sub 22 minute pace because you were on 24 whatever pace, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day,
Yeah, oh, exactly,
where it
yeah.
finishes the pace you were on.
Yeah, but I was running like
That's something that just between you and me, that's something that Aaron would always tell me. Is that
Yeah.
I was on 2:48 pace until mile 17 when I realized I fucked the whole thing up, and now I'm not going to finish it.
Well, Michele, it sounds like this race, you had a certain type of runner in mind. You want it to be a fast course,
Yeah.
so people who are maybe looking to PR.
Yeah.
What about people who are shooting for their first 100?
I think it's a great one for the first 100. There's a lot of aid stations about, the farthest one's I think 6.8 miles, and it's in a easy section, and you're going to be well taken care of. You can't get off course. You just make sure that the canal's alongside of you. And
Is it 50, 100? Is it 50K, 50, 100? What are the different
there's a
distances?
50 mile and a 100 mile, and then there's a 100-mile relay.
And what's the cutoff for the 50 and the 100?
The 50 miles, 13 hours, and the 100 miles, 30 hours.
Okay.
So plenty of time for either one.
And what do you get for finishing the 50 or the 100? What's the swag?
You'll get a medal for finishing the 50 mile, and you'll get a belt buckle for finishing the 100, and there'll be a sub 24-hour belt buckle
Has
as
anybody
well.
contacted you, because I've heard this from other race directors, and said, well, I want to get a belt buckle for doing the 50. Can I get a belt buckle for doing the 50? If you had
Yeah,
any of that?
nobody's asked for that.
And then you're get a shirt too.
Yeah, you'll get a shirt, and I've got the design of the shirt here, but I guess I can't show that.
Tell us.
We can post a picture later.
Okay.
And how much does it cost to do the race?
I'm not sure where it is right now. I think it's 180 and 100 for the 50.
Is there caps
And
or
then
limits?
it's
Should people be
350 people.
Okay. And are you close to that, or do people have?
We
plenty of
have
time?
103 people signed up right now.
Oh, nice. And you're part of the Illinois Slam as well.
Yeah.
Which includes Potawatomi.
Potawatomi, Hennepin Hundred, Crimea River, and Tunnel Hill
I mean,
100.
If you do all 4 of those, there's different distances. There's like a 250, a 350, a 450.
Yeah, you can make up whatever combination you want, and then you get a belt buckle. That's all about just making, whatever challenge is right for each person.
And now, are you the director of the Illinois Slam?
We all equally are. All the race directors
all
are
4
equally,
race
yeah.
directors. So then you all chip in together and for like the awards and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, we're charging, and so every dime that we're charging will go towards awards.
And so now this is a new race for 2015, but most people know you from being the race director of what other races?
Frozen Gnome and Earth Day. Frozen Gnome 50K and Earth Day 50K.
And,
Earth Day's the hat we're wearing today.
Yeah.
and Earth Day is coming up, right?
Yeah, April 18th.
And tell us about that race.
That was the first race that I wanted, because I like spring running after a tough hard winter, and it's just it just feels so good when the flowers start popping through and the green starts coming out on the trees, and and we went with Earth Day because an April race is right around the Earth Day time, and we try to promote less landfill, and our shirt this year is made completely out of recycled trash by Atanye, and the design of the shirt is Veterans Acres. It's the trails of Veterans Acres and all the main spots in Veterans Acres, like Leg Bone Loop and around the lake, and the totem pole that's out there are included in the design of the shirt, and it's a footprint. So it's run hard, tread lightly is the theme of the shirt.
Where can
Very
people
cool.
go to find out more about Hennepin and Earth Day and all of these races?
To mudrunner.com, and it's mud, MUDD, runner.com.
And we'll make a note to put a link to that on the page as well, so that people can look that up. I know I've done the Frozen Gnome. Aaron's
I've
done
done
the
Earth
Frozen
Day.
Gnome. You've done Earth Day too?
Yeah, great race.
I love the Frozen Gnome.
Yeah. That was one of Aaron's first real trail races. I mean,
Yeah.
he did a trail marathon, but that was your first 50K on trail, right?
It's my one and only, and it just hurt.
Yeah. Then it did what it was supposed to.
Yeah.
going down that, there's like a 20-foot, 30-foot like ice slide you have to go down.
Yeah, butt slide hill.
Yeah, the butt slide.
People
hill.
try to like run down it, or it's stupid. You have to just get on your butt and go down.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, we'll also put a link to that on the page as well. That takes us to the next segment, which it's kind of like the Pat Sweeney Stories extravaganza. And it's what's really interesting is that we're having an interview with Sweeney and we're having an interview with Vanessa, and we're talking about Vanessa's book. And part of the things in Vanessa's book took place while we were in Leadville. She talked about some of the things, and you can read the book and you're like, oh my God, we were there for that. But I met Pat Sweeney, such an interesting guy. I told this story on the trail the other day. I had run my first 50 mile was the North Country. I didn't know what I was doing, and it was like 12 and a half hours. And then maybe 3 months later, I ran the Lakefront 50 miler, and I ran at 8:22. So, leading up to going to run the Potawatomi 100 as my first 100-mile race, what I really wanted to do was find a really, really hard 50 miler. So the 50 miler that I found was the Ray Miller 50-50 out in California. And because I thought I was hot shit, I was thinking, well, I'm gonna finish this race in like 10 hours, 11 hours or something like that. And I remember while I was packing thinking, headlamp? I don't really need a headlamp. I mean, I just ran 8 hours. It's going to be like 10 hours. There's no way I'm going to need a headlamp. So having no mountain experience, having no California experience, having no, I've never done a really, really hard race. I mean, North Country's, it's not one of the easiest races. It's not as easy as the Lakefront, but I mean, it's not one of the toughest races in the country. So I go out to run the Ray Miller race with my eye on like 10, 11 hours as my goal. And the other goal was to meet my hero, Jimmy Dean Freeman. And so I go out there and I start running, and, this race has some, 2,000-3,000 feet climbs, and, we're in California and it's nice and hot. And it didn't take very long in the race before I figured out that I was in way over my head and that there was no way in hell I was going to finish within the time period. And, and it's an important part.
Did you throw in the towel? Did you give up at that point?
I didn't give up. I didn't throw in the towel. And as a matter of fact, the hardest part, the longest climb in that race, I'm going up the hill, and then here comes this guy, no shirt, no bib, Luna sandals, no idea who he is. And he just starts talking to me. He's like, well, where are you from? Who are you? And I told him, I'm from Chicago. And he says, Chicago? What the hell are you doing here? Why would you be in this race? And, I told him I was looking for hard 50. And he's like, this is a really hard 50. You probably shouldn't be doing this one. And he power hiked with me up the hill. And we talked about the Dodgers and Luna Sandals and Hokas and Carl Meltzer. And, we had some friends in common. But, what was really touching to me is that here I am, maybe third, fourth from last in this race. And here's this strange guy, and and he helped get me up that hill, and if he wouldn't have been there to distract me and to talk to me, there's no way I would have had, the day that I had. It would have gone about 1,000 times worse in a bunch of different ways. And, one of the other things I told him is that I really wanted to meet Jimmy Dean Freeman after the race. And he's, Jimmy Dean, he's a good friend of mine. I'll introduce you to him. Don't worry. We'll see you at the finish line.
Was he running the race?
I don't know what he was. He was either the sweeper.
He's just one of those kind of people who's just there at the right time.
There. It was so, and as quickly as he was there, he was gone. And then I think maybe he was the sweeper, and he was just kind of getting ready to start sweeping. But my 10-hour goal turned into 11-hour goal, turned into a 12-hour goal. And about the time when it dawned on me that I was fucked with a capital F, there was Sweeney sitting in a chair drinking a beer, and he yelled, "Hey, by the way, Jimmy Dean dropped out. Sorry, man." So like my whole hope and dream of this, I'm going to go meet my hero's gone, and all I have to look forward to is a very slow battle to the finish line. And I didn't actually know what battling the cutoffs would have been, and I don't even know what the cutoffs were in that race, to be honest with you. But at some point, then I realized that the Energizer. Maybe 10 lume headlamp that I threw in my bag as a second thought as I walked out the door probably wasn't going to light the trail when it got dark. And this was at about the time that the sun was setting on the other side of the mountain, and it was starting to get dark. And the trail was marked wonderfully, but probably not marked for somebody who's going to be running in the dark. And I got scared out of my mind that I was going to get lost on the trail. And, I started to get that. And if you've ever almost been lost or, had something really bad happen to you while you're out there, the feeling. It's the feeling that I am going to be a search and rescue out here. I'm going to get eaten by a mountain lion. I'm in trouble. And I put the headlamp on. I conserved the battery. I didn't know how much battery was in this headlamp. I don't know anything. I am just like screwed. And I started crying, and I started hiking as fast as I can and crying and desperately trying to get to the next aid station. And when I showed up, they were having like a total party, and they knew I was Chicago, and told me I was doing fine, nothing to worry about. You just got to go up over this last hill, and you're going to be fine.
Were you totally by yourself at this point?
I was all alone in the dark.
Did you ever have struggles like this before?
Never anything even close to this. I never even imagined anything like this. And it wasn't like my body's falling apart, but you know what I think it was is being a flatlander and going out west, that it's a whole different ball game out there. And I'm sure that most of the people that have gone out there and done things have had that moment where they say, this is really different. I wasn't just hiking the ups. I was hiking the ups and hiking the downs, and on the flats, I was still too tired and I had to hike. And I just kept saying to myself, why are you walking? You're not hurt. You're not, why are you walking? So at any rate, I ended up, kind of trotting slowly down the trail in the dark, and really afraid of falling over the edge. And I finished, I think, second or third from last, all by myself. And I went back to the car with my medal and my half a Subway sandwich and bawled my eyes out. And
why did you cry at the end?
It was that was hard. I can't believe I did it. I was afraid of getting lost, overcoming something that was really, really hard. It was just like, like I had to hold it together to get there. And it was just like oh my God, I'm done. And our friend Melissa, who went back with me the next year to do the Sean O'Brien 50 mile, she'll tell you the same thing. She was crying in the car, and I don't have I didn't look back and remember that at the moment, but I remember looking at her car and saying, what the fuck are you crying for? You just finished. She's like, well, that was just so hard. That was the feeling.
It's interesting though, because you never once said, like, during your story that, I was considering giving up. Did that cross your mind?
I don't, it's interesting. I don't think that I knew that was an option in races until later on, until I started doing 100-mile races, because my first 50 and my second 50, I don't ever remember doing that in my head. Like, am I going to finish? Could I quit? That wasn't an available option. And especially there, I mean, you're in the mountains, you're in, Malibu, there's nowhere to quit. I guess I could have stayed at that last aid station.
So the thing that's interesting to me is, since I didn't know you very well at that point, but I think of you as someone who always seeks out like these really hard challenges. But it sounds like that was kind of the first time that you did something that was way over your head. But then you decided you want to go back and do more of that. Like, I'm surprised you didn't return to your former ways and, stick with trying to get the PRs on the flat ground. And
I woke up the next morning and started researching the Angeles Crest 100. That was my reaction.
So what happened to you? What happened to you in that race that changed your whole perspective about what your running hobby was all about?
Well, I think separate and apart from the important part of the story, which is Sweeney saved my life by running up the mountain with me.
I forgot about that.
I think that, well, I mean, we're doing this live, right? So we'll go where we go. I think that I learned what the thing is that I really like about ultra running, and that's the process of being scared, doing something that's really, really hard, being in that dark place, and then overcoming all of that. And that even though it was terrible when I was in it, when it was all done and I look back in the rearview mirror, I say, holy crap, did that just happen? I can't believe I did that. I didn't get lost. I didn't get eaten by a mountain lion. I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I made it. I want to feel like that more, because I think maybe I feel primal. Maybe I feel most alive when you think I'm totally screwed and I'm bound to die out here. and then you get past that. And I think that's kind of like what I'm searching when I do these races.
That's so interesting because we just had Michelle talking about how her big focus was on, she always really wanted to go for her PR.
Yeah.
And it's cool to me that we've got like two people in the same sport that are really aiming for, you know, kind of a different outcome. And it's neat that we can, you know, have both sides of that.
Next up, we're going to do a short interview with our friend Pat Sweeney, who's currently on a mission to run across the United States. Pat, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I just got finished with my run about 30, 45 minutes ago.
Now, more importantly, where are you right now?
That's a good question. I left Memphis
Do you know where you
this
are?
morning, and I ran just a little over 50 miles, and I believe I am in Henderson, Tennessee right now.
And how many miles have you run so far, if you know?
Just about 2,100 miles.
And where are you going to finish?
Plan is to finish in Boston. I would like to do the Boston Marathon course.
Oh,
since I here. And so I want to do the Boston Marathon course and then do another, 5 miles to the sea somewhere. I haven't figured that quite out yet, though.
Why are you doing it? Can you tell us a little bit about the cause?
Yeah, I'm raising money for the 100 Mile Club, which is a kids fitness organization that encourages kids to run 100 miles during the school year. And so for the 100 Mile Club, it's not a competitive thing. It's about a little each day, each week, adds up to a big number. It's mostly elementary school kids that are in it. And so I'm doing a little bit each day, just a little bit more, and then trying to get across the country.
About how many miles are you averaging every day?
So far, I've averaged probably between 30 and 35, and I'm starting to bump that up a little bit. I want to start averaging around 40.
Now, we've been following you on the internet, and it looks like everything's been upbeat, everything's been positive. Have you had ups and downs? Because if you have, we haven't noticed that.
No, it's pretty good for the most part. I enjoy being outdoors. The weather's been not cooperating some days, but it makes it a little bit more interesting. And I mean, you just got to make the best of it while you're out there.
It looked like we saw you with a lot of snow when you were in like Texas or some weird place that you wouldn't have expected it.
Yeah, Texas, one day the wind chill got to 0 degrees. And that's the coldest weather I've ever been in my life. And so going into this run, I've only seen snow falling from the sky for maybe like 10 minutes of my whole entire life. And
Where are you from?
I'm from Manhattan Beach, California, a couple cities south of LAX.
And so when you decided that you were going to run across America, did you have to do any sort of special preparation, or you just kind of said, here we go?
I thought about doing some preparation, but I love running on the beach more than anything else. So I just got as much beach running in as I could. I thought about training on road. I don't really run too many roads unless I'm in a race. So I thought maybe I should get on the roads for a while, but then I thought again, figuring that I'd be on the roads for 100 or so days. So there's plenty of time to learn on the fly.
Have you ever done anything even remotely like this? Have you ever run across the state or any, extended road running?
No, not at all. Like in my normal training, like when I would train hard, but at faster speeds, when I start getting like 100 miles a week, my body would start to see diminishing results. But with this, I've been doing 200-mile plus weeks pretty consistently.
Week after week.
The slower pace, so the body's holding up okay.
No, for how long of a period of time have you been running so far?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How long has this mission been going on so far? What day are you on? Do you know?
We started on my birthday, January 16th. And so I think we're around like day 73 or day 74, maybe 75, somewhere around there.
So what I'm curious about is, what are some of the cool things that you've seen as you've been going across the country?
I've seen 5 people smoking at gas stations.
Keeping a tally.
I've seen this new thing that all the hotels have where the shower curtain has a pole that goes like outwards.
Why is that?
Accommodate larger Americans. I've never seen one of those before. Yeah,
Have you seen other runners?
in Texas, I saw a runner.
How does the group? Are you running with a group, or are you off doing your own part of it?
There's been different phases of this run. At the start, I was running with a group of people involved with a race, but for me, it wasn't the right atmosphere, and I didn't think it was the right way to promote the 100-mile club. And so me and this other guy, Jeff, we went off together and we ran for a few states. And then he went off to go push a buggy and go self-supported. And then I'm going with my good friend Vanessa Runs and her husband Shaki Runs.
Now, I have a question. When you're talking about the other people or the other group,
yeah,
our friend Barefoot Alex was out there. It seems to be running across. Is that a different endeavor, or is that the endeavor that you were involved in and now you've left it?
Yeah, I was part of that. I want them to be successful, but so I can't really voice my opinions about it. I really like all the other runners there, and I wish them the best of luck. They're awesome people. But that's all I got to really say.
No, and I'm not trying to draw you into controversy, but I just know that from the standpoint of someone that's just watching it on Facebook, I see a lot of people, running across America, and I was just wondering if it was part of the same thing, and it seems like it's not. So now it's just you and Vanessa and Shaki and your support group going on your own.
Yeah, now we're just cruising along.
And how are you raising money through doing this, and how can we help or the listeners help?
So if you go to runwithusamerica.com or Run With Us America on Facebook, there should be some links to a donation page for the 100-mile club. And so the way the 100-mile club works, for most kids it costs $10 and their parents can afford it. And for the $10, when they run 25 miles through like school running programs or through like races, they get a T-shirt. Back of the T-shirt, it says 25, 50, 75, and 100. And there's little boxes that they check off. And so when they get to 25, they check that off. When they get to 50, they check it off. And so when they get to 25 or 50, when they get to 75, they get a bracelet. And then at the end of the year, all the kids that get to 100, they have a medal ceremony. It's really cool. And it's like if kids are exercising before school, studies have shown that they're more attentive and they tend to do better. But not all parents can afford the $10 to pay for them. So money that we raise pays for the 100-mile club to go to inner city schools or the kids don't have much, might not have a baseball team or a soccer team like other kids have. It gives them something to do, something to be active and a goal to achieve.
And is this a nationwide thing or is this just local to your area?
It started in Corona, California, but it's nationwide. I think it's in over 1,000 schools. It's actually in a few other countries, but it's growing pretty exponentially, and it's a pretty awesome cause. If you go to 100mileclub.com, you can find out more about the 100-mile club.
And we'll put a link to that on our Facebook page as well. Pat, what made you want to get involved in the 100-mile club?
So for the last few years, I've done some races, and I've done fundraising for them in the past, and I've become good friends with the founder of the club, and I brought the 100-mile club to my nephew's school, and I've seen them grow to love it, and I've seen the kids who do it, and it's just a really simple, positive thing, and it's kind of a no-brainer for me to want to raise money for them.
So, for example, my kids, can they join the 100-mile club, or is it something that would have to be brought to the school?
They're here in
first?
Chicago, just by the way.
So yeah, you can join it on an individual level. It works better when like a whole school gets involved, but it costs $10. So you could go to the website and you could sign up, and they would send you a T-shirt, and you could do it on your own. They also just started a thing with New Balance where they're going to try to get 1 billion miles between all the schools that are involved with the 100-mile club and all people that are involved with it. But that they haven't quite finalized the website for that, but that should be up in like the next few weeks.
So that'll happen while you're on your journey right now.
Yeah, it'll happen while I'm out there.
Wow, very cool. I can see why kids would love that. I know some schools do like the challenges where they count the steps and I know the kids really get into that. So this seems like a great way to introduce them to running. Very cool.
Did you run when you were in school?
No. When I was a kid, I was pretty fit till I was like 8 or 9 years old, but then I became a chubby kid. I wasn't like the chubbiest kid at school, so I didn't get like all the ridicule that kid did. But I was up there. But I always played sports, but I hated running when I was a kid. I think if there was something like the 100 Mile Club around, I might have grown to love running at a younger age.
Why do you think so many kids hate running when they're young? Because I think that's pretty common.
I think the way like maybe parents or coaches approach it, like by punishing kids at like practices, by telling them that might be part of it.
That's crazy, and I can't imagine Pat Sweeney being a chubby kid either, as we've seen.
When I
that's
was
hard to
12,
imagine.
I weighed about 10 more pounds than I do today.
Whoa.
Yeah, we were all with you at the beer mile in Leadville, and actually, Katerina, the girl that's been asking questions, she's the girl that won the beer mile. She's the
awesome.
female winner. So I've been telling people about how much I've always looked up to you and liked you. I met you at the Ray Miller race.
I remember that.
Running up the hill with me, and we had a long talk about the Dodgers. I don't think I would have finished that race if it weren't for you. So I've always appreciated that, and watching what you're doing is inspiring. My last question for you is: has there been any deep, dark places that you've gone to? Any adversity? Any struggles? I mean, it can't just be easy running since January.
For the most part, things have been pretty good. But a couple days ago, I got stuck in a hailstorm that came out of nowhere, and I was just in my sandals and shorts.
Jeez.
And it wasn't the coldest weather that I've been in the whole trip, but it was the coldest I've gotten. And there was nowhere to duck and cover. I just had to run through it. And my Achilles was bothering me at the time, so I aggravated that more and more. And yeah, bad thoughts were going through my head for a little bit, but the sun came out like less than an hour later, and all was good.
Well, Pat, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us. We'll put a link to the cause on our Facebook page so that everybody knows and they can know where to go to donate. It's been a real pleasure talking with you, and boy, we're all behind you. It's been great.
Cool, awesome, great talking to you guys. So also, my final day in Boston, I want people to come and join me. So I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be probably mid to late May. So if you guys are free,
Marking the calendar.
You don't have to have a Boston qualifying time to join me.
Very cool.
We'll call
You can
that
run like a 12-minute mile for a marathon. That's probably about the speed that I'll go that day.
that'll be my one and only chance to beat Sweeney at the marathon.
After he's
Well,
run
great talking to you
3,000
guys.
miles.
Thanks,
right,
Pat.
Later. Thanks a lot.
Next, Katerina here's first memory of Pat Sweeney is participating in the Leadville Beer Mile, which she won. And I think it's a story that merits telling. We all went out to Leadville as a group to crew and pace for the Leadville 100, and that was a trip that we had planned well in advance that we were all really looking forward to going to, and it was going to be Kat's first running in the mountains, right?
Absolutely. First time in the mountain.
You had been there before, and Corey was on the trip. Corey rented 3 cars. So last minute, we ended up in Corey's big SUV, which was filled with bananas, to go
And
to
a lot
Leadville.
and a lot of friends.
And Scott was really excited about this beer mile. And I think he maybe didn't realize that a lot of us were a little bit hesitant about this.
Let me back up, because
Okay.
when I went to Leadville the year before to pace our friend Tony Cesario, and I remember them talking on Facebook about the Leadville International Beer Mile led by Pat Sweeney. And people like Mike Aish were going to be there, and Ian Sharman, and all these big names, Brian Powell from Iron Fire. And I was like, oh my God, I got to go to that. And Pat Sweeney actually invited me to come to this thing, but it was on Thursday, and I wasn't getting in until Friday. So I was really pissed. And then the following year, when we all decided we were going to take this camping road trip to Leadville, I said, I reached out, and I was like, we're going to have another international beer mile, because that was something that I really wanted to do. Now, I'm a recovering alcoholic. I don't drink. But just the idea, the vibe, the fun, the being with all the people, that's what I really wanted to do. And Corey had invited a bunch of us to go to a party at Mike Aisha's house after the Leadville Beer Mile, because Corey has a I don't know what you call it. Man crush, connection, friendship.
Say man crush.
Man crush. She has a man crush on Mike Aish, who ended up finishing what, second?
Well, tell someone who Mike Aish is. I
Yeah,
bet
who is
Aaron
Mike Aish?
doesn't know.
Yeah, Aaron should know.
Mike Aish is a couple time
I have no idea.
in the Olympics for New Zealand, and he's now running in the U.S. and living in the U.S. and hopefully will win Leadville this year. I think he DNF'd 1 year and then placed the next year. And
So
this might
last
be
year he
the
was second
Yep.
in the Leadville 100.
Yep.
And is there a competitive field this year for the 100 for men? Is there
I don't
anybody
know. After I didn't get into the lottery, I felt sort of bitter and distanced myself from that event.
Well,
Psychologically.
So we were all going on this trip, and we had all these awesome things to do. We were going to do the beer mile. We were going to go to Mike Aish's party. I had another friend from Fleet Feet, this Claudia Beck, who I had known here, who was going to be at the party. There was a lot going on. And when we got to Leadville, we the first thing we did on Zero Sleep was go climb up on top of Hope Pass.
I went to sleep.
Corey
I was running, though.
Corey had been at the dispensary the night before, so Corey was on an edible hangover or something. So we went, including Katerina and her daughter Zoe, went to the top of Hope Pass, and following that summit, we get to the bottom, and we were all headaches, tired. We had all driven across country because we all drove there. We didn't fly there, and we went out to eat, and then after eating, I said, like, well, let's get to the beer mile. And the vibe of our group was fucking pathetic.
God, I can imagine.
Everyone just looked at me like, I don't want to do that. And Katerina was the queen of negativity. And she's just like, I just want to go back to the campsite. Nobody wanted to do it. And I had this outburst on the whole crowd. And I was like, listen, we had a Facebook event. We're going to the beer mile. We're going to Mike Aish's house afterwards. Screw you guys. Get your ass in the car. And I went off on everybody. I mean, Kat, is that?
Oh yeah.
That's what happens on road trips with friends.
So Scott was pissed. He was mad. We're sitting in the car like, oh crap, he's so mad at all of us. And I especially felt like he was particularly mad at me. So then I'm just kind of following along. They all go to buy beer at the store. I'm like, I don't want to do this beer mile.
And the whole scene it was like scary because it was like 15 minutes till start. We don't know where the beer mile is. We don't have any beer, and I'm mad at everybody, and everybody's mad at me. We're flying through Leadville, what is it, like two streets in Leadville? We're flying through Leadville. We're gonna find this liquor store. We're gonna get and I remember Alfredo and Mike Siltman. They followed me to the liquor store, just like, oh my God, Scott's pissed. We better get some beer. So we got all this beer, non-alcoholic beer for me and Alfredo, and
that's when I decided, okay, there's only one way to get Scott to not be mad at me. I have to do this beer mile.
I have no idea that that's happening. I have no idea that Kat's made
I wish
this
I knew you in
decision.
high school. It sounds like you get peer pressured into doing bad decisions pretty easily.
I have no discussion with Kat about the fact that she's going to do this beer mile.
Because you wouldn't speak to me.
And we drive in silence. We get to the field where the beer mile is going to be, and all these people are standing there, and it was like this surreal moment. There's like 400 people standing in, and I'm thinking this is like the biggest beer mile in the history of man. And Ian Sharman was the timer, and Pat Sweeney was there. Pat, who you're going to meet later on in the podcast, and I've never done a beer mile before. Being a recovering alcoholic, it's not something that I've had an opportunity to do. But I got 4 non-alcoholic beers, and I'm going to do this beer mile. So next thing I know, they're describing the rules, ready, set, and I grab my first beer, pound it down as fast as I can, and start to run forward. And the first thought I have is, this is exponentially harder than I had any. I mean, it felt like it was surreal. But I turned to my left, and there's Katerina flying down the trail at 10,000 feet with a beer. And I've never seen her drink a beer in my life prior to this. So I don't know how that unfolds.
She was really scared that you were going to be angry with her. So
Yeah, I was.
Chugging
I thought
beers.
this was the only way I could get him to not be mad. So I turned to our friend Mike and I'm like, I need some beer from you so that I can be in this event. And he's like this beer connoisseur, and I hardly drink.
Who DNF'd the race, by the
Yeah,
way.
so he hands me some sort of fancy IPA
Yeah,
with like
you guys
super
were drinking
high
beers that were like 6% alcohol or more
Yeah.
for a beer mile.
And so, I knew I wasn't going to like it. So maybe that's why I had an advantage.
But
I'm
let's,
just like,
let's keep in mind, just to paint a full picture, both children are there watching this.
yeah, my
Kat
little
took her
kids,
kids to the beer mile.
ages 4 and 8. I suddenly had a coach. My friend Melissa was like, come on, drink it faster. You can do it. Don't sip it. Chug it, chug it, chug it. So I chug the beer and I take off and I'm running. And after the first beer, so you drink a beer, you run a quarter mile, you drink another beer, you run a quarter mile.
Now, in this case, the quarter mile was an out and back on a dirt road. And keep in mind, we're also at altitude.
10,000
Yeah, and
feet.
the coolest thing was like, so you drank the beer, you started running, and it was like silence, and all you could hear surrounding you were like burps and belches from everyone that was running, and then the occasional vomiting.
And also keep in mind, these
People were
400
vomiting.
people that I described, like when he said go, it was only like 20 of them that actually ran. Everybody else was just there to
Right,
watch
right.
the freak show.
So, it was hard. It was like all that bubbling in your stomach, and it just felt crazy. And I remember finishing either the first or the second lap, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. This is so hard. And then there's my friend Melissa. You're in the lead. Come on, hurry and drink this beer. And she was like yelling at me, screaming in my face. Drink it faster. And of course, here's me like, okay, well, I guess I better drink it faster then.
And now she's about a quarter mile ahead of me, and I'm about a second away from throwing up. I mean, it was uncomfortable how full I was. And I think in the middle of it, Tim Long, Foot Feathers from the Elevation Trail podcast, he's standing there. I had just been on his podcast maybe like a month before, and he looks at me and goes, I said something about this is stupid. I'm done with this. And he looks at me and goes, Scott, if you finish, I'll have you back on the podcast again. And I looked at him and I said, that's not talking me into anything, you know? But and then I find out that Kat's winning and that Mike Siltman dropped out and Alfredo's still involved. It was just madness. And then all I could think about was Kat's going to win.
So, well, I won for the women, not the whole thing, but it was really cool because Pat Sweeney runs on the beach. He lives in California,
Yep.
and he collects shovels that he finds, like little plastic shovels that kids have left behind. So the awards for the finishers were these plastic shovels that were kind of presented like a medal around your neck. So that was cool to get that, and my kids got the plastic shovels, and when I finished, my son, who was 4 at the time, said, I have never been more proud of you in my entire life.
She was like a superstar.
Yeah, so that's like my moment of fame. Nothing like that'll probably ever happen again.
Oh, I'm sure
Yeah.
it will.
Prior to that day, had you ever drank 4 beers in less than an hour?
In like 12 minutes.
Well, like 12. What was your time?
I don't remember what my time was.
And you have last year's Leadville winner Ian Sharman counting off the time.
How do you
while
know?
you're-
How do you not know what your time was? I'm sure it's on @links or something.
I don't think I was pretty drunk by the time I finished.
I have it on video.
Let's put it this way: when Kat finished, she looked at me and she said, "I'll go to Mike Aish's party now. That sounds like fun. Let's go."
She said this. She said this covered in vomit.
No one.
I
If you
didn't
vomit,
puke.
you gotta do a penalty lap, don't you? You have to go back and
you're
run
supposed
some
to do
more.
another lap. No, I didn't puke. It just like your stomach bubbles up, and I remember feeling like I was pregnant by the finish. Like it just expands in your stomach.
There was that.
That's not
Everyone
a very-
should try
half the
it
audience
who's never
doesn't know
tried
what
it
you mean by
before.
that.
There's that guy. I put the picture on the Facebook page. There was a guy who had like his stomach sticking out, and he's on there. And there's a nice picture of you running behind him, and a picture of like Sweeney. And there's a nice picture of you and Alfredo running together too. But you had to have lapped
I
him
lapped
by then,
him, yeah.
because he
Yeah.
was DFL.
Alfredo was?
Yes,
So he won a special award for DFL.
he got a
which was
special
cool.
DFL award, and I think first place was Sweeney.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's a man of many things, right? Sweeney's he's the international beer mile champion. He did a 2:45 in Boston in Luna Sandals. he won a burro race, he won a 5K, and now he's trying to run across America. Next, we're going to talk to Vanessa. Vanessa Runs is a person that I've admired for a long time. Her first book, The Summit Seeker, was a book that I read early in my ultra running and absolutely loved it. And she's just followed it up with a book called Daughters of Distance that it looks like it's going to be a great book. Katerina's been reading it all day ever since we've been
trying to speed read so we knew what we were talking about for the
awesome.
interview today.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and the book and how that came about.
Well, a little bit about myself. I started running in 2007 and got into trail and ultra running probably 2 to 3 years after that. And Shaki actually got me involved in ultra running.
Shaki's the boyfriend.
Yeah, well, we're married now, but he was my boyfriend.
So now he's Shaki Runs.
Yeah, yes.
Robert Runs.
Robert Runs, that's right.
Okay.
So I started getting into trail and ultra running and just kind of fell in love with that and never really looked back. Never did another marathon, just kind of went into the 50Ks and all the other ultra distances. So my first book, The Summit Seeker, was kind of just a memoir of how I got into trail and ultra running and just how it changed my perspective on life and a lot of other different topics. Daughters of Distance is a little bit different. It kind of does the same thing, but it talks about other women and just their stories and their struggles. And it covers all aspects of endurance. So not just running, but also triathlon or cycling and stuff like that. And just it kind of started off as interviewing a whole bunch of women. I interviewed more than 100 women and just came up with a few common themes that I found a lot of women were struggling with individually without really realizing that other women were going through the same things. So I kind of divided the book by chapters according to those themes and then just sort of told their stories. And I think it's been a great, thing to come out. And for a lot of these women, it's the first time they've told these stories.
Vanessa, what was the reason why you thought there should be a book about women or for women? I saw you doing the research on Facebook. I saw a lot of the questions that you were posing and things like that. But back in the beginning, when you decided what the subject of the book was going to be, what led you to that topic?
Well, it really evolved from my original intention. My original idea for the book was to kind of have a few, maybe 10 to 20 women and publish their profiles, just kind of mini stories of who they were and how they got into running. And once I did that, I kind of, as I said, just started coming up with the common themes. And I felt like it needed more exploring and just deeper exploring. So I interviewed more and more women and did some other research on the side and just completely evolved where the book was going. So I kind of just went with it. And a lot of my own ideas about what running was for women and what endurance means for women were kind of changed. And I changed my mind about a lot of things and just really let kind of the stories and the voices of these women guide me as far as what I wrote.
Vanessa, what was one of the things that changed? What was one of your ideas that you had before writing the book that then sort of evolved or changed?
So one of the major things was my ideas of equality and what it means to have equal treatment as a woman in sport. So coming from the sport of ultra running, I felt, and I still feel that ultra running probably does one of the best jobs in endurance as far as gender equality. And I just assumed that all other sports like cycling or really just any sport, even non-endurance sports, had that same level of equality where women could compete with men and women could compete on an equal level, an equal playing field, and just was blown away to discover that wasn't at all the case. And I just had no idea. So in the book, I talk a lot about cycling, which is just one endurance sport. But even when you take into consideration a lot of other sports, non-endurance sports like tennis and all that kind of stuff, I didn't really have the space to get into every single sport. But for example, cycling, it's still very divided between the genders, and women often can't race either with men or over the same distances or on the same courses or over the same number of days. And that was just kind of mind-blowing for me to learn.
It's really interesting to me just hearing you say that, because as I sit here today, as a guy that watches a ton of sports, I can't tell you that I've ever seen a female bicycle event on television, period.
On TV, yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen women in a bike race.
Right. And I kind of got into a little bit of the stats as far as the percentages of how women are covered in the media or just sponsorships and stuff like that. And it was just like alarming inequality to me, and just very, very eye-opening stuff.
Do you feel after writing this book that you sort of want to set out to change things or help in some way?
I definitely would. I think my main goal with the book was mostly to open a conversation, because I feel like a lot of these things women are just not really, nobody's really talking about. And there's other chapters that get into like biological differences or menopause or like periods and stuff like that. And a lot of these topics are still considered very taboo, but just very universal as far as women and endurance are concerned. So I think primarily I would be thrilled if the book would open a conversation to talk about these things firstly, and also to let women know that they're not alone in what they're experiencing, which I found surprisingly almost every single woman I talked to really felt that they were alone in their struggles, and their struggles were so common.
Well, I wanted to tell you a couple things that I've noticed that I've really enjoyed. First of all, the idea that all these women are role models, not just elites, and that having people speak up who maybe aren't in the front of the pack can be just as helpful and as interesting as learning about the women who win all the races. That's number one. And number two, I just love the format. You have a theme for each chapter, and then you talk about it in sort of like a historical way and give some of the cultural definitions of the theme. And then you give different women's opinions on these topics, and it's just a really neat way of sharing. And I feel like you're also including yourself and telling us about how you feel on the different topics. So I think it really has a wide appeal to a lot of people. I wanted to ask you, that phrase "run like a girl" has become kind of popular right now. It's been in the media. And I was wondering, you bring it up in the book, and I was wondering what that means for you. What is Run Like a Girl all about?
So it's funny, I wrote that chapter before, all the hashtagging and all that. So then when it came out, I'm like, oh, and I kind of considered going back and maybe adding that into the chapter, and in the end, I didn't do it. But so when I originally wrote the chapter, my thoughts, well, they haven't changed. To me, run like a girl means to run with a combination of both power and gentleness, just being very sharply aware of your own body and also what's going on around you. So kind of just not just a strong physical prowess, but also an underlying sensitivity where you're in tune with yourself and also in tune with nature and in tune with your competitors.
I have a question, Vanessa. I think when you were talking about the subject that you covered that are specific to women, like menopause, etc., that I think it's interesting that I've read almost every ultra book I get my hands on. I never saw any of those subjects discussed. But separate and apart from that, as a man, other than the fact that I think that you're great and I like everything that you write, why would I want to read your book? Why would a man want to read your book?
That's a really good question. And a few of the people that I had edit it or give me their feedback in the early stages all kind of mentioned, this would be great for men to read as well. And I think a lot of it would be as eye-opening. I think it would be for women. It would be even more so for men. And it would just greatly help men understand what it's like, what women have to deal with. So, for example, there's one chapter on safety.
Is this the creepers and the rapists?
Yes, like
Okay, because I saw the heading and I was like, oh boy.
trail. So, and when I speak to men about that topic, or the men who have read that chapter are just absolutely blown away by what goes on in a woman's mind when she's on a trail alone and she doesn't feel safe. And just having to, every time a woman will go out, there's always that thought in the back of her head, today the day I'm going to be raped or attacked or whatever. And a lot of men don't. I mean, that's something that just doesn't ever occur to them. So I think it would help men better support the women that they love who are into endurance sports and are participating athletically, or just even non-endurance sports, just going out for a recreational jog. It's really truly eye-opening. And it also, I interviewed one friend of mine who is a transsexual, and he was born a woman and transitioned to a male. And I got some really deep insights from him as far as what it was like for him growing up as a woman and just being active and in sports and kind of sexualized the way he was, and how that changed as a male. And he gives his advice for men about how to deal with this and how to change it and how to help women.
I know who you're talking about, and boy, he opened my eyes to a whole bunch of things that I never would have thought about in the past too. But you know what was interesting is when you were talking about how there's a whole different set of issues that women confront on the trail, and is this the day I'm going to be raped? I was remembering that when I was running in the Bear 100 this last year, there was a point where I decided I was DNF at the next aid station, and I saw a girl all by herself limping down the trail, and my first thought was, it's dark, she's probably scared, she's hurt, she could probably use company, but I don't want to be the creeper or the rapist either. And I swear to you, the first thing I said to her is, listen, I'm not hitting on you. I'm just dropping at the next aid station. And if you want some company, I'm willing to walk with you so that you're not alone. And there was something about the way that the exchange went off that I could just see in her face how relieved she was that she didn't have to deal with any of the creepiness, and that, you know, she was going to have someone with her and she wasn't going to be alone out there. So I just kind of thought about that when you mentioned that.
And Vanessa, you do know that part of your book was written about Scott. The chapter about emotion, when you were talking about how, you know, our notions of feminine and masculine emotion kind of get broken down on the trail. And it was really reminding me of Scott, because, man, this guy cries a lot when he gets out there on the trails.
I hear you, and I think that's common. And you know, it's interesting. A lot of these themes, I think, in the end, and I kind of say this in the end of the book, in the end, I think it's more unifying of the genders than it is dividing them. Like, I find just so many more similarities now between males and females, and I think that's part of the purpose of the book too, is kind of to unite the genders. And I mentioned in one part, you know, it's not that you know, the fall of men isn't linked to the uprising of women or whatnot. Like, we really need to work together to just for the good of society and the good of humanity, to push everyone forward at the same time.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out. We know that you're on a mission to help Sweeney right now. Where can people get your book?
So right now, the Kindle version is available on Amazon. They can just Google Daughters of Distance, and it'll be on Amazon. In about a week's time, I'll be releasing the hard copy version, which takes just a teeny bit longer. So that will also be on Amazon as well, and everything will be available, you know, in Barnes and Nobles or whatever, wherever you get your digital books, it'll all be up there.
Are you going to do Audible again? I listened to Summit Seeker on Audible.
I would like to do Audible
that.
again. I would like to record it myself, which is why I haven't done it yet, because we're, you know, this crewing thing's taking up so much of our time. But once this is all over, I think I'd like to sit down and record an audio version.
That's awesome.
Very
well,
cool.
We'll spread the word around. We appreciate what you're doing, and I'm sure Pat appreciates it too. And say hi to Shaki and Ginger for me.
Will do. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Vanessa.
Bye-bye.
The next segment is running through pain. You know, one of the things that kind of happened this weekend was that we learned what it's like to be in a lot of pain and get up and do it again the next day. And I think that's probably something that Pat Sweeney probably has to deal with every single morning. I can't imagine running 40, 50 miles a day. But, I learned a lot, when I was laying in bed on day 3 and I thought there's no way that I can get up and run again tomorrow. I think I learned that you can, and I think that a lot of times, a lot of people in our sport have a hard time blurring the distinction between it hurts and I'm injured, or, I should quit or I should push through it. And I know it's a fine line, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not an expert and I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. But, this weekend was a really good lesson in all of that.
Aaron, are you still there?
No.
Oh, we don't have Aaron
We
anymore.
lost him.
Oh, shucks.
What were we going to ask him?
I wanted to ask him about pushing through the pain when you're trying to be like competitive up in front, and does that change how he deals with
Well, I mean,
with difficulties?
like take Corey even. Corey has a lot of injuries. He's had knee problems. He's had a lot of issues.
Yeah, we already discussed that knee problem.
No, but I
in the
mean,
previous-
how do you make that determination between this is, and all kidding aside, because I know we mocked you and all that kind of stuff at the race, but I mean, it's a legitimate question. How do you know when you're injured or quote unquote injured?
I don't even know what the difference is. I mean, last year when I was coming back down Hope Pass, I legit sprained my ankle at mile 52, and I think that's quote unquote injured. And I just was like, I want to finish this race anyway, and I did. And it took 3 or 4 months before my ankle finally felt like it was normal again. So I think that was legit injured. And even in that case, it was like, this is just race pain. You got to push through it and just get the thing done you want to get done.
But now, how do you compare that to? Have you ever taken yourself out of a race because of injury?
No. I've not finished races. Oh yeah. Well, okay. I guess. I mean, it's just like a totally different category for me, though.
But it's
I
on
don't know.
topic. I mean,
Sure. Yeah. I guess in that case,
but now what was the case?
My knees hurt a lot, and I didn't want to injure them worse.
This is Kettle
But
Moraine last year.
For
Kettle
me,
Moraine 100?
right. For me, I dropped it 100K, and I just didn't feel like my heart wasn't in it the way it was before. So to me, it's a matter of having your heart in it versus being in a certain level of pain.
See, but now we're talking about a whole bunch of topics, right? I mean, because I never understand, and I've been there. I'm not judging anybody, but I've been there where I've decided at some point in the race that my heart's not in it. It's not that important, and I don't have anything to prove. But that's kind of bullshit, right? I mean, I didn't pay $250 to go to this race, and I didn't run 70 miles to only come to the conclusion that I don't have anything to prove at mile 70. I mean, to me, that's like the voices in your head talking you into quitting.
Michelle, what do you think in terms of like how do you determine when pain is something that you just have to put up with versus it's time to stop?
Oh, it's really tough. I've made mistakes and stopped when I thought I was injured. You convince yourself that you're injured, that it's something that's going to put you out. And I've also went on when I was injured, and it was a groin injury that took me 8 months at least to really get over.
Did you regret it then in
That's what I was
retrospect?
wondering.
No, I don't think so. I went out to do Lean Horse 100, and I wanted to finish. I didn't want to drop out, so I kept going, and and I'm glad that I finished. But I definitely was injured for a while. I think the mistake was actually made a little bit more afterwards because I kept trying to run. I should have just taken some time off. I didn't take enough time off to get fully healed, and so I drug it out for 8 months. But if I would have taken 2 months off, I might have not had 8 months of uncomfortable running.
Well, let's ask the question a different way. Have you ever dropped out of a race because of an injury?
I have.
Okay. And what was the difference then between, like we just talked with Corey, my knees hurt, but I'm still going to go, versus now my knees hurt, but I'm going to drop?
Yeah, it was at Iron Horse, and it was my Achilles. And I just, in my mind, I felt like it was going to snap. It just happened. Really, it just happened. I was going. I was suffering, but I was going along okay, and it just felt like it was going to snap, and I stopped. But I was fine. A few weeks later, so I don't know. How bad it was. It was swollen. It was bruised when I was done, But I'm not, it's hard to say. I still don't know for sure if it was just, if I could have, I didn't have that much longer to go. I only had like 20 more miles.
And did you regret it?
Yeah, I think I regret that one because I could have just walked and finished.
Yeah. I feel like I could have done the same thing at Kettle and just didn't. Although
I pretty
don't
much
regret
just
that,
walked
though.
the last however many miles. You could have joined me.
So we seem to have like the full end of the spectrum where like not injured and dropped anyway, injured didn't drop, injured did not drop.
Well, like all my drops were just mental failure. I mean, it was just me being a wimp, basically. I think the only time I would legitimately say it was injury related was when I signed up for the Potawatomi 150 and I had to drop to the 100. But it wasn't because I had a specific injury. It was because my feet were screwed up from the water and the blisters and you get the blowed up, jacked up feet. And I couldn't move fast enough to have any
Can you
meaningful...
put a picture of those feet onto the website so people
I think
can?
we should have a no feet rule. We should be
I'm down with the no
pioneers
feet rule.
in no feet pictures. But
Do not post feet pics.
But it was important because, like,
on the
even my
internet.
wife went to Alfredo, my friend, and said, "Is he just being a wimp, or is he legit injured?" And Alfredo just said, "There's no way he's going to finish," because I was just moving too slow because of my feet. And I joined a group of other people. But all the other times I've quit, it's been I just was a wimp. I just decided to quit on myself, which I guess is even worse than the injury. But I guess the question that I'm trying to get at is this injury something that we kind of create in our mind, or is it something that doesn't really exist?
I had a coach before Leadville in 2012, Scott Weber, who's a cool guy.
Is that the banana guy?
He is I mean, that's not his thing. I think he was doing that just to mess with me. That is the banana guy.
Have we talked about that on the podcast?
I think that's like its own whole segment.
We'll hold out
I eat
for
a
the
lot
nutrition
of
segment.
bananas before races.
Corey had a coach that essentially gave him a trick. He tricked him into thinking that he should eat like 2 pounds of bananas before big races. And even though Corey now intellectually knows that was a trick, he still does it.
Correct.
He eats 20 bananas every day for 3 days before his big races.
Yep.
For no apparent reason.
And this guy also gave the bit of advice, which was, you can't get injured running 100 miles. And I just kind of had that stuck in my mind.
Now, was that running through your mind when you quit Kettle Moraine?
No.
I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm just asking the question.
I didn't have to dig that deep to quit that time.
It was just an easy decision to make.
It was. But that was just for me on that day. I don't know. I didn't care that much.
No.
I don't know why.
As a race director, there's a whole different
But I don't
approach.
think you can really get
See,
injured.
well,
Can
I
you get
wanna go
injured?
back to the
How do you get
pain
injured
thing.
during a race? What does it really mean to be injured?
I don't know.
There's
I
a lot
have
of
this-
Well, I mean,
insane
obviously,
pain that you
if I
go
trip
through.
on a rock and my bone is sticking out of my leg, we
Okay,
all know
if
I'm
you-
injured and I should quit.
Why?
Well, because I'm not going to run on a
Okay, if a
compound
bone's sticking out of
fracture.
your leg.
That's pretty easy, right?
Sure.
All right, and then we have I'm just being a wimp and I'm going to just pretend like I have an injury because I don't want to run anymore.
Which I've done.
Yeah, well, so that's the other end of the spectrum. But where's the middle? Because everything hurts when you're running 100 miles.
I remember at Kettle 100K, it was really hot, and I was crossing one of the roads, and I was thinking, I hope a car just hits me. So I got a good excuse then.
I think my earliest memory of that sort of thing, I remember doing cross country in junior high, and I remember spending probably 3/4 of the race staring at different spots on the ground, thinking of where I could like sprain my ankle. And then the race was over. So I mean, I don't know, this pain thing. For me, I don't mind if the pain is like in a certain place in my body. It's that pain of running fast and struggling to get a breath in like a 5K that to me is the worst kind of pain.
I think another thing we haven't covered is that like mile 80 to mile 90 just fucking hurts. Like there's not much you can do no matter what pace you're running, injured or not. Like there is another element of this which is just pain that comes along with what we're doing. And
Well, and to me that's where the conversation comes from, because as me and Kat deal with more newcomers in our running group, as people that are around the group runs a lot for Flatlanders, we have a lot of people that we're kind of helping find themselves in running, and it's really hard for me to tell people when they should and shouldn't run, or what pain is good or bad. But I think one of the overlying things that we talk about a lot is that, sometimes you can't stop running every time something hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could, get inside of my body, you'd feel a lot of different pain. Most of the time there's something that hurts. And I don't think that that's necessarily an injury. I mean, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I pulled out because of my hamstring, my knee, my blank injury at a race. Those people don't go to the doctor the next day.
I certainly didn't go to the doctor. Man. It's
Yeah,
like, I'll rest for a week or something.
Is that really an injury? I mean, I don't know. But what I was going to ask Michelle is, maybe this doesn't come up as much with Earth Day and Gnome, but even with Hennepin, as a race director, when do you decide to tell a participant? Because, if I'm looking at you and you're the race director and you tell me I'm injured, I should pull out, that's my out, right? I'm done.
Yeah.
Race director took the decision out of my hand. She told me I couldn't run anymore. Have you ever been in that situation even?
We haven't been in that position at Frozen Gnome or Earth Day.
So you've never pulled anybody because of injury?
No.
But it might happen at Hennepin because now we're doing it with 100.
And well, that's a point-to-point race, so I'm not going to be at all the aid stations, so it definitely won't be me making that call, but there'll be, we'll have aid station captains that will be there.
Is there discussion about that ahead of time where you're telling aid station captains how to make that decision?
Well, we're going to have doctors that can be called upon, so those will be the ones making that decision.
That's a tough call to make.
Yeah. Especially since they're not ultra runners.
Yeah.
Because they're like,
People
this,
"My legs hurt
just
so
like
bad."
If you go to the doctor, am I going to be okay to run 100 miles? No.
All right. Well, the next segment is about race day, and we were going to talk about just optimism, pessimism regarding upcoming race days, leading up to them. How do we feel? Because I think a lot of us, maybe not Corey, you don't have anything coming up, do you?
Not till May.
Yeah, but I know me and Kat have races coming up. Indiana, she's doing Indiana 100. I'm doing the Potawatomi 100 and the Indiana 100.
For me, this race that's coming up, it's kind of interesting. My ultra career has been really short, but I've kind of jumped into things really quickly, and every race has been like this new, different adventure. And I think coming up for Indiana 100 is the first race where it's like there's nothing really new or different for me, and I'm curious to see how that affects me.
Now you've never DNF'd.
Correct.
And you've done a lot of hard races.
Yeah, I haven't, and I haven't DNF'd.
Won a beer mile, won a 30 miler.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, but so going into Indiana, it's not like more difficult than any of the races I've done before. It's not longer.
Well, tell the folks a little bit about Indiana. What's it about?
Indiana 100 is a loop course, and I think it's pretty flat. I've never actually been there, but I think
it's like plus or minus 4,000 feet.
Okay, so it's I've run 100 miles that had 20,000 feet, so
A little more than that.
yeah. So and each loop is maybe
16.6 something.
Yeah, so I guess I'm getting into my head that what I have to make as a goal is a PR, because
Now, how does that get in your head? Because I've known you a while, and I've never heard, other than I think that one marathon we did, I've never heard you talk about goal being PR or time or anything like that.
Well, because I was sitting there thinking, if I don't have some sort of like reason to finish, I might find myself in trouble. Like, where's my motivation for this one? And so I haven't been in this position before where I haven't had like this obvious motivation.
So your motivation is going to a finish time.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening.
And how do you make that decision in terms of the finish time?
I don't know. I'm just thinking that the course is easier than the courses I've done before, and so therefore, why don't I go for a PR? I'm not exactly thrilled with what my current PR is, so I think I can improve on that.
So what's the goal?
Just to get a better time than 28 hours.
So that's it. Just better than 28 hours is what you're shooting for.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a lot of people, and I've already seen people get in your head about, you're going to break 24 hours, you're going to break 20 hours, you're going to have the fastest time, you're going to, I mean...
I don't know where they get that
People
idea.
do that.
people do that. I don't know why
Just on the
people do
internet,
that. I mean,
or just
I am
on group runs
I
or
am
something?
the slowest 100-miler of my friends, and I guarantee you that someone will put on my Facebook wall, "You're gonna finally break 24 hours at Indiana," and my reaction is gonna be, "I have no interest in running faster." I mean, like if I came around the last loop and I saw that if I just push a tiny bit instead of what I usually do, which is slow down to a slog, I like if you told me at mile 90 that if I give a little more effort I could break 24 hours, maybe I would do that. But I'm not going into mile 10 with that mindset ever.
What I guess I mean, it's not going to make me run differently, but I feel like I have to have a goal going. I mean, is that weird? Like, I have to feel like I have a goal going into the race, or maybe I'll end up like just going, "Oh, I'm sick of this. I'm done." But if mentally I have something that I'm aiming for, I think that'll help me get through it. I think we'll find out.
I don't know if that's something that is a struggle for me or not. I mean, I don't go into the race with a motivation, and maybe that's a problem. Maybe I need to train harder.
Well, usually but I guess what I'm saying is usually my motivation is just to finish.
And you don't think just finishing is a hard enough goal for Indiana 100?
No. I do think that's a hard enough goal, but I'm anticipating the fact that maybe I'm not like real pumped up for this because it's not something that's like different and new. And so I was thinking about that when I was running the other day. Like, okay, I have to have something to get me excited about this. I know it's like supposed to be a really awesome race with, a cool race director and lots of great aid station things and just a fun time. And loop courses are cool because you see people a lot. So there's all those fun things about it.
And a lot of your friends are going to be in the race, too.
Yeah. So those are all good. But no, I'm throwing it out there that, of course, I'd like to get a PR at this time.
Yeah, I'm looking at it more like I'm doing 2 100-mile races close together. So to me,
Which two?
Potawatomi 100 in a week and a half, and then 2 weeks after that, trying to do the Indiana. So my goal is to try to complete those 2 races within the time period. But there will be pressure to go faster. That sometimes when I think about my performances in my races, most of my races are either dropping or barely finishing. I don't have a lot of in between, and I think it's because I try to overreach to things that are harder than I can do. Sometimes maybe before I can do them, or for example, last year a lot of it was injured.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's a part of me that thinks, should I be trying to run faster? Should I be trying to, train harder? And I think I'm going to do that at the Ice Age 50. I'm going to try to push the pace and try and be faster. But I think it's really hard for me at the 100. And the other thing that I struggle with is, let's say I'm running along the trail and I see my friend Corey on the side of the trail and he's, hiking. I'm more apt to slow down and hang out with Corey than I am to speed up and have a better. And I don't know if that's a character flaw or what, but I mean, I'm out there for the shared experience. I'm not out there to necessarily, have a time or a better ultra sign-up score or something like that. I mean,
but you have, though, in the past. I mean, when you ran the 50-miler on the lakefront, when you ran the marathon last year in Milwaukee, I mean, maybe you didn't plan it out in advance, but you definitely were zoned in on trying to run fast and hard.
I mean, in both of those instances, I ran by effort, and I had a good day, and I ran, faster than I would normally run. But it wasn't necessarily I want to beat so-and-so or I want to beat a certain time. In fact, Aaron came to the Lakefront 50, and when he jumped in, he said, "You realize that if you pick it up a little bit, you could." And I said, "Dude, I don't even want to hear about that. I mean, I'm just motoring along at the speed that I want to motor along at. I don't want to pick it up."
What do you think, Corey? Or Michelle?
Well, I was wondering if as these race days approach, these thoughts sort of weigh on you, or does it affect your thinking or anticipation of the race more, or as race day approaches, it just kind of more mellows out into the race. I'm just going to go do
Kat's searching for motivation, like that she is thinking about that.
A little bit. I mean, I can't say that I'm going to be standing on the starting line shaking and nervous or anything, but it was more me, last week I was a little sick, but didn't really have any excuse, and I just wasn't getting out of bed and running. I was like, so it was kind of more for me to get moving in training. Like, wait a second, how am I going to be able to finish, you know, in a PR or whatever if I don't get my butt out the door? So,
Well,
Michelle, how about you? You have
that's
you
what
have
I was
a
just
PR
thinking.
history.
Like her 100-mile history was, I want a better time. I want a better time. You know, it's kind of like the opposite of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, that was my 100-mile history. But I also, you know, probably one of my proudest races was my slowest, because I managed to keep going when I thought that I was just dead. So, and that was still a great athletic accomplishment. And
What race was that?
Potawatomi, 50-miler, and I was horrible shape. I just was dying getting through that race. But when I finished, I was like, you know, I did that. I can do anything. I mean, I somehow managed to get through that.
At what point in the race did the I'm screwed kick in?
Probably like 17.
Oh my
you know,
God.
so like 30 some miles of just awfulness.
You spent more time screwed than you spent.
I've never swore so much in a race. Karen Ray, she ended up running with me, and I was complaining. It was probably one of the last times I've complained, because I was just she was so nice. I was a horrible running partner. I was just awful. And I look back and I was kind of embarrassed of how much I complained. I'm like, this is the last time I have to go over this hill. And, but it was a really great feeling to finish and you know, and so from then on at every race, it's like, well, I kept running. I didn't run. I kept slogging along. But, you know, I kept going at that race, so I'm not that bad now. I can, you know, somehow find, you know, I can move forward.
And I can attest to, after last year having my feet are screwed and there's no way I'm going to finish 150, it is a terrible place to have to suffer through the rest of the run, because you have the hills and then you have the water, and it's just like, boy, I can only imagine.
It was probably my attitude was the worst part. I mean, I don't know if I was... You know, I hadn't ate or drank, and I don't even think I continued to eat and drink the next 30 miles, because all I wanted to do was complain.
You didn't have time to put food in your mouth because you had some complaints.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And then your pal Karen let you complain.
Yeah, well, she was like, well, what is it that hurts? You know, have you ate anything?
Everything. No.
She's the consummate pacer, though, I'm telling you. She's a pro. Her and Aaron were the two people that got me through Sawtooth. So.
Yeah.
Corey, what's your motivation for a race?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to skip it.
Well, it can change from race to race.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, that's I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
So if you're running a flatter, faster course, it might be one thing, and depending on the terrain. But Corey, I mean, you have Colorado 200.
Yeah, how are you going to get motivated to run 200 miles if you don't know why?
I don't know. All I can think of is the first time I was going to run 100 miles, it was just something exciting. And then a couple weeks out, I just remember staring up at the sky, lying in my backyard, and just thinking, like, what the fuck did I get myself into? And the feeling lasted about 15 minutes. And it was just like this wash of this overwhelming feeling of, like, this is so crazy. And then I did that, and it was crazy. And then I did a few other ones, and then that feeling kind of went away, and I still get very excited and very passionate about doing them. And then I just read about 200-mile races, and I just had that same feeling again. I was like,
I think I know what you're saying.
Because like throw my name in that
going
hat for
into
that.
Indiana and Potawatomi, I don't have the feeling that I had when it was like getting ready for the Bear, getting ready for Sawtooth, getting ready for Tuscobia. For 2 nights before that, I woke up in the middle of the night terrified.
Yeah, that kind of thing where it's just
but
like
Indiana,
so much.
Indiana and Potawatomi, all I can think about is easy miles with my friends in the woods. You know, spending time with them, talking, seeing all
Which
my
is cool
friends
too.
at
I mean,
the
that's a
aid
great
stations.
reason to go out and do an event.
Yeah, I love the aid stations going in, and like especially at night with the lights on, and everybody's like, "Yay!" and you're like tying, and all of a sudden the lights come on, and you
always
feel
have that,
better.
Like, Apocalypse Now aid station with the Christmas lights.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of just like goes right into our last segment, which is the end of the podcast and what's up for next of us, and you know, I don't know when we're back again. Or when this is going to be released, because we're one behind.
We're recording again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Mm-hmm. So will that be before Potawatomi or before Indiana?
It'll be before Indiana,
Okay.
after Potawatomi.
So between now and the next podcast, I'll have suffered through
You'll
the
have done
Potawatomi
Potawatomi.
100. Which Cat
I'll be
isn't
hanging out
coming
there.
to.
You're not
Yeah.
going down? Yeah, Kat, you're busy.
I'll be at Zion that weekend, pacing Holly.
Oh, nice.
Nice. And our friend Ethan's going to be at Zion too. So there's
Okay.
another person from our group.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful. It's always been on the list.
Is your friend Holly running the 100-miler?
Yeah, she is.
Oh, cool.
So
and
you're
how
gonna do
many miles
50
are you
with
going to
her?
pace?
I'm doing 30. We're breaking it up into two. She has sections that she thinks, she's really planned out every single section. And so she wants me fresh in the parts that she thinks she might have a hard time. So she
Cool.
has it all planned out.
Nice. So
Where is that race, the Zion?
At Zion National Park,
In what state?
Utah.
Okay.
and so Kat will be getting ready to taper for Indiana. Do you have a plan or anything?
No, I just probably run a lot of miles for the next couple weeks. And then I kind of liked what I did before the Silamo. I didn't really taper. The last week before the race, I just didn't run.
The whole week.
Yeah.
Did you
whole
feel
week.
weird? Did you feel
No, I
guilty?
felt great.
Nice.
I loved it. I just hung out all week and then okay, time for the race. And I just felt, my legs felt fresh and good. So that's my new strategy.
I always do 10 miles on the week before and then 3, 4, 3 in the middle of the week. And then that's it for race week.
He's got a very specific
20 miles.
schedule.
Yeah.
20 miles
yeah.
on race
And
week.
then bananas times 20.
Yep.
Should I do that as like a science experiment? Should I do like that? How many days before?
3 days.
I got time. I could do it. 20 bananas. Anything else other than
Oh,
bananas?
that just sounds so horrible.
Some chips.
Chips?
A couple beers.
I don't drink.
No, right.
So Michelle's going to be working on Hennepin 100.
Yes.
Is that it? Is that like a full-time job, basically?
I work on it every day.
Wow.
I mean, there's a little something that I do every day. I've got a meeting tomorrow at the Hennepin Canal Parkway with, local people. Usually there's a few mayors that are along the canal there. All the tourism groups in Illinois come. Just everybody in that community. It's a pretty big group that comes.
Are they excited about it? Are they
Oh,
curious?
they're so
or like,
they're
"What is
so
this? What are you guys
excited.
talking about?"
Yeah, they're definitely wanting to help. The mayors are like, "What can we do for you? Come on down. We've got a house that we can rent for people if they want to
Well,
take a
me
shower."
and Corey are going to be at an aid station.
Yeah,
the
I
whole
went and
time.
checked out your guys' aid station.
Make sure you work out a loud sound permit with them.
Yeah, you don't need to supply the sound equipment. He's got all
He's
that.
got- okay.
We just need to be able to be as loud as we want to be and dance. And we're gonna have a dancer pole. We had Racine Lambert as a guest, and she demanded that there be Jack Daniels, so there better be liquor permits.
Okay.
For this. There's gonna be shots of Jack
Well,
Daniels.
just in plastic cups. I don't know anything.
And it will never be the same weekend as Superior Sawtooth again.
Yeah,
We have to do that.
yeah, it wasn't when we chose it. I mean, it was a really big deal to choose it. I had, the calendars open for everything, and then plus I was there with the towns, and so you had to kind of work around. It's a big farming community, and they have all kinds of festivals and stuff going on. So you had to work around what they were going on, and then Sawtooth ended up being a
'Cause that would've been
different
screwed.
weekend.
I would be up. I mean,
Yeah.
to be clear, Kat does not want me to pace her. She doesn't like pacers. What she said is, Sky, you know how at the Bear, when I got to the aid station, there were all those people that came out and gave hugs to the runner?
Yeah.
That's what I really want. I'm like, so you want me to go to Sawtooth for the weekend and hug you at the aid station? That's it. That's all I'm going to do. But I mean, I like being a part of that race too. So, there's a lot of people that are having a good gig.
Now, how do they usually choose Sawtooth?
I don't know. You're going to have to talk to John Storkamp. You're going to have to make sure
we'll have to plan
ahead of time. Just tell him you don't want to compete with him. You want to be in a different weekend. Please tell me, and I'm sure that he'll find a way to help. He's a really good guy.
Oh,
If
yeah,
you need
he
to be-
is. Yeah.
You know him, okay. good.
Yeah. The Hennepin Hundred's also on my mom's birthday, so it's kind of a good year for her. A good memory for her.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is she gonna come out?
Well, she
to
passed
the-
away at about 1 year ago. And she was a really big supporter of the ultra running. In fact, when I first started running, she didn't like me running at all. I would come in. Oh, I didn't like it. So I'd come in, I was red, I was out of breath, and she's like, she didn't like me doing it. It didn't seem good for me. And then once she realized well, then she loves the ultra runners. She would always come to Frozen Gnome and Earth Day and take care of the food and try to make stuff healthy. And here I am serving nachos with canned cheese. But like she made, we had cream of mushroom soup. And I just bought cans of cream of mushroom soup, but she had like these little packets of herbs, and she was like putting it in there and mixing it up. And everybody's like, "That's canned cream of mushroom soup. What kind is it?" And they're taking it's Campbell's soup. That stuff's so good. I didn't know it was so good.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you purposely? Oh no, you said it was hard to pick a date, so it just happened to fall on her birthday.
Yeah, it was. I was kind of, in my mind, I was kind of glad that it was on her birthday. I purposely, I think, have stayed particularly busy this year because, she's been with me, or, she moved in with us when my son was born, so she lived with us our entire, married life. So she was always, she was another parent for the kids. So, it's it was really sad, but so I like to stay very busy.
And the Hennepin Hundred's going to keep you busy.
Yeah,
but it'll be that's done. That's like you know what you're doing. You got that.
Yeah, I've had to get a lot of the work done early for that since I'm going to Zion, and then I also have to go to Missouri for work tomorrow after I go down to Hennepin. So everything's pretty well done for Earth Day, but I've got a lot.
Still open for that?
Yeah, but it might have closed because there was only a couple spots left.
Okay,
I
so
didn't.
If you go to Mud Runner and there's still an opening, that's a place to go. But you can still sign up for the Hennepin 100, and you can see all of us except Katerina, who will be suffering at the Superior Sawtooth that weekend. Me and Corey will be at the Hennepin. Aaron has volunteered to go to the Hennepin. He doesn't know yet, but we'll tell him. He likes DJs, so he'll show up. I hope people are getting something out of this. We're figuring it out as we go. We're working on the volume. We're working on everything. We had some great guests today. I mean, 3 of the best guests you could ever ask for. People that I probably could have spent an entire hour talking to. If you like it, if you don't like it, if you have comments, questions, anything, go to iTunes, rate the podcast on iTunes, write a review on iTunes. It helps us a lot. Helps prospective listeners, gets the word out. We're trying to keep you company on your run. I hope you're on your run. I hope you're enjoying it. Some of the comments have been really, really good. Every single person has said there's lots of sound problems, and that's not surprising to us because we don't have millions of dollars worth of equipment, and we're doing the best that we can. But a few people have kind of gotten the idea. One user writes, "I love the just sitting on the couch with my friends vibe of your podcast. Nicely produced and nice intro. Are you going to have some t-shirts? I can't wait to go on my next run." That's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for people to take us on the run and feel like we're their friends on the run. Others have said that if you're an ultra runner in the Midwest, this is a great podcast. They like the 10 by 10 segments. At some point we might add some long run segments where we have like a longer interview with someone that might be a little bit more serious and might get a little bit more in depth. But for now, I think that I really like the kind of lighthearted, let's just have fun format. Also, if you want to leave some comments or some grab bag ideas, this podcast, we didn't do it, but sometimes we reach into the grab bag and answer questions from you. We have a Facebook page. On the Facebook page, we're going to try to remember it. I think Kat wrote down everything that we were going to put on it. We're going to put a link to Vanessa's book.
Fortunately, it's recorded, so we'll be able to figure out which things.
We're going to put the Pat Sweeney, go donate money to him if you can. What he's doing is really, really good. And if you want to find us on Twitter, it's at 10 Junk Miles. You can find me at Scotty Coomer on Twitter. Katerina, how can people get a hold of you? What's your Twitter?
Oh, I don't really use Twitter.
Facebook?
Sure, you can find me on Facebook.
Kat's on Facebook. Michele at mudrunner.com. And
yes.
Where else?
Hennepin has a Twitter page. I don't know how to use it very well. I sometimes star stuff, I think.
And then Mud has a Facebook group. If you're
we have a Facebook
McHenry
group,
area.
and then I have a regular Facebook page.
So Michele Hartwig on Facebook.
And the Hennepin 100 has, every one of the races has its own Facebook page.
Nice. Corey?
YROC, YROC on Twitter and on Facebook.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next time.